Okay, it's 1:30. Start shortly.
We'll send a letter about the U. Oh, yes, they can't have that. So then maybe that'll get them. 3 is 1. Yeah.
Okay, very good. We'll begin the Planning Committee of Akron City Council and welcome everyone back to a new year of new beginnings. With that, we do have a couple items that are up for a public hearing this afternoon. First order of business, though, I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting. So moved. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? The ayes have it. With that, we have 3 items, I understand, that's up for a public hearing this afternoon, as well as this evening at 7 o'clock, to let the petitioners know and all those interested that we will be conducting 2 public hearings, one right now at 1:30 and then one at 7 o'clock this evening. The procedures are in essence the same, excluding the at the end of the 7 o'clock public hearing, the committee will make a recommendation to all of City Council. But before that, before the public hearings, I will ask a representative of our law department to swear in anyone who's wishing to speak this afternoon. You'll be asked to be sworn in again this evening, but anyone wishing to speak this afternoon to any of the issues in reference to the public hearings. Thank you. Mr. York?
Thank you. If you plan on speaking at the public hearing this afternoon, if you could stand and raise your right hand. Anyone speaking at the public hearings this afternoon? All right, no one to swear in, sir.
Thank you, Mr. York. Very good. Okay, given that, the first item up for public hearing this afternoon is a resolution approving the renewal application of Evelia Maldonado Ramos to have agricultural property at 1080 St. Michael's Avenue placed in an agricultural district pursuant to revised code section 929. Mr.
Thank you.
York?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members.
Okay, Mr. Antonucci first, then Mr. York.
Sure. Evelia Ramos is requesting renewal for an additional period of 5 years of agricultural district designation for this property at 1080 St. Michael's. Evelia Ramos has 4.13 acres of land devoted for agricultural use. Agricultural designation will provide financial benefits in the form of property tax relief and encourages continued agricultural production of that property. Planning staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Mr. York?
I guess just to piggyback on Mr. Antonucci's comments, this is a renewal application which council had approved 5 years ago. This is back for renewal. Okay. As far as we know, it's still agricultural production, and it does meet the lot size requirement because it's part of a bigger parcel, consolidated, that add up to more than 10 acres. So even though this one's only a little over 4 acres, it's part of the larger parcel that Bessemer Farms farm out in that area.
Okay, cool. I'll go back to you for a question. Given that, we'll now open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request for CAUV at 1080 St. Michael's. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in favor? Procedurally, we're doing this correctly. Anyone against? Anyone against? 1080. Anyone wishing to speak against? Said it 3 times. Therefore, we'll close the public hearing and open up the questions from the committee members. Any questions? I do have one. You had mentioned before that this is 4 whatever acres, and this is, so in essence, this is part of the Bessemer farm, or how does?
Yeah, it's part of a larger number of parcels that are consolidated for the purpose of farming. So the revised code allows those parcels to be consolidated, and if the whole property altogether adds up to more than 10 acres, this particular one, even though this one's only 4 acres, it's part of a bigger piece. Okay. So it qualifies as far as the area is
Is
concerned.
that piece located within Akron, or is that relative to the second piece that we have?
All these pieces are located in Akron.
Okay, so it's, so
But I don't know that
together,
all- I don't know that all of Bessemer's properties are located in Akron, but all the ones that come before this body are in Akron.
gotcha. What, do you know the size of the second parcel?
For the next piece,
Yes. Just out of curiosity.
that one's actually got 2 pieces attached to it.
Okay, well, we'll wait for that time.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Very good. Hearing none, we'll now move on to item number 2, which is a resolution approving the renewal application of Donald and Carol Bessemer to have agricultural property at 1456 St. Michael's Avenue and 1443 Collier Road placed in an agricultural district pursuant to revised code 929. Mr. Antonucci.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Donald and Carol Bessemer requesting renewal for an additional period of 5 years of agricultural district designation for this property, 1453 Collier Road and 1456 St. Michael's. Bessemers have 17.69 acres of land for agricultural use. The designation would provide financial benefits in the form of property tax relief and encourages continued agricultural production, and planning staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Mr. York?
Again, these 2 parcels do add up to 17.69 acres. They are also part of the larger Bessemer property, which are altogether, it's in the hundreds of acres. And these 2 are located in the city of Akron as well. So they do meet the requirements for agricultural use district.
Cool. Thank you, sir. At this point, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request? It's St. Michael's and Collier Road for agricultural district. Anyone here wishing to speak in favor? Anyone in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against this proposal? At 1456 St. Michael's and 1543 Collier, anyone against? Anyone against? Okay, very good. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, open up the questions from the committee or the council. Okay, very good. Yes, Ms. Sims?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So out of the 100-plus acres, is there a requirement that a percentage of that be productive land, or that it's in production, or it's just an automatic?
No, there's no certain requirement of a certain percentage of it used for farming, but it does exclude residence lots. So say there was a lot that had a house on it, the house would get taxed at the regular value, but the farmland would get taxed at the reduced value. And the county fiscal office looks at those particulars, and that's how they send out the tax bill.
Okay, so us as a city, so when they come and ask for renewal, do they share with you, like, even, like, what percentage of that land is productive, or if it's, or can they just, can it be, let me ask you.
Because it's more than 10 acres, they don't have to show some of the specifics, like income, like a smaller size property would have to show. So they don't, what they show is that they're farming on it, and we generally look at the aerial photo, and it's obvious when you look at the GIS map that there's farming going on there. So then it qualifies.
Thank you. I guess the inquiry was, there were other parts of the city that are looking at maybe an agricultural designation, and kind of wanted to know what some of those prerequisites are
Well,
relative
for the
to.
smaller lots, they would need to satisfy an income requirement. They'd have to show that they're making a certain amount of money. But they could look that up in the revised code. It's chapter 929 of the Ohio Revised Code. I don't know what the figures are off the top of my head, but you know, if it's something they're interested in doing, then they should consult the codes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Swirsky?
Are there a little more details about how they intend to use it other than, you know, farming? I mean, what do they intend to grow? Will it be for retail consumers? Will it be for grocery chains? Do we know any more about what the operation will be?
We don't know. I believe it's the same as what they've been doing for many years. It's a renewal, And, I mean, oftentimes Mr. Bessemer shows up, and sometimes he doesn't. When he does show up, he generally explains what he's going to be doing with it, but I actually don't know.
I could just share a little bit, having a little bit of experience with this, just in terms of there is, these laws are state law that CAUV is meant to encourage folks to grow, obviously to utilize these land areas for agricultural uses. And if you look on the county website, there's a whole area within the Summit County Fiscal Office that kind of outlines a lot of those rules. You can find them there. And I believe part of the mission of the CAUV is to encourage, again, the agricultural use. I can tell you from my experience, and this is from perhaps a couple years ago, so I don't know if it's been updated or changed, but if, in fact, an agricultural use would discontinue, and oftentimes you'll see like an allotment, say, go into an area that used to be farmed, and if it was on a CAUV, what would happen is there would be a look back, and I can't remember if it's 3 years or 5 years, but I believe that the owner would be required to satisfy that tax, whatever tax relief that they did receive from the CAUV. I think that's kind of like it in a nutshell, but there's a lot of moving parts to it, and so would encourage anyone to kind of look it over. But in terms of the county, they do go in and kind of check and see what kind of, what they're growing there specifically and how they're using the land. I can tell you that for a fact, Mr. Swirsky. Yeah, Ms. Sims?
So just as a follow-up, I think it was happened in 2016, there were some changes in agricultural laws that resulted, I thought at least, in the reduction of productivity for Bessemer's farm. That's why I was asking, did that change in terms of what needed to be productive land? Was it designated, or did that remain the same? I mean, I think they were required to have certain equipment and to grow certain kind of produce, and I thought that there would have been some reduction in their production.
I'm not familiar with those changes, but I don't believe any of those changes are reflected in Chapter 929.
Okay.
They may have affected other things, but not the agricultural use districts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sims. Further questions or comments? Very good. We'll now move on to item number 3, which is ordinance authorizing conditional use to establish a group home for up to 10 people at 85 Kent Place. Mr. Antonucci.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, Sage Lewis, doing business as the Homeless Charity, is requesting to establish a group home for up to 6 people in a single-family dwelling. Housing for more than 5 unrelated individuals in a single-family dwelling requires conditional use approval. The petitioner purchased a 2-story brick colonial house, which was constructed in 1908 in August of 2018. The site plan denotes a second floor containing 2 bedrooms, with a first floor containing two bedrooms, full bath, kitchen, living room, and storage room. One objective of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan is to provide a full range of housing alternatives for all social, racial, and economic groups. Petitioner has stated that the dwelling is meant to provide transitional housing for the homeless until they are placed in permanent housing. The use as a group home should not be intrusive to neighboring properties. Planning staff and Planning Commission supports the use of this house as a transitional housing facility for up to 6 people, provided all housing, building, and fire codes are complied with, and recommends approval subject to these conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. We'll now open up the public hearing. If there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the conditional use request at 88 Kent Place, anyone here wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak against the conditional use request at 88 Kent Place? Excuse me, is it 88 or 85? 85, I apologize. Anyone wishing to speak against the conditional use request at 85 Kent Place? Anyone wishing to speak against 85 Kent Place? Anyone? Very good. Hearing none, now open up the committee members. Are there any questions or comments from any committee members? Mr. Kamer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is for the Planning Department. Has this ever been dealt with before in regards to coming to council for approval of a number that is like 6 or higher?
Yeah, City Council has approved rooming houses for over 5 people in the past, yes.
Very good. Further questions or comments? Mr. Hope?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kind of like along on the same lines with opening this up and allowing the conditional use. I know that we have numerous group homes throughout the city in different residential areas of our wards and everything. Would this or could this open that up for the other group homes to file for conditional use to allow to have more people in the house than it's specified as to, I think it's one person per bedroom in the house? Is it, you know?
Well, the way that the zoning code works in terms of, housing of the definition we go back to the definition of family for the number of people that can be, if they're unrelated in a single family dwelling. So that definition says that 5 unrelated folks in a house, 5 unrelated people are considered a family. So you have to allow at least 5 in a single family housing. Now, if it's over 5, that's when somebody can petition for a conditional use to get that approval, for more than 5. So then we look at it with respect to we want to have a inspection done, housing inspection, which was done in this case, to make sure that that those numbers could work. We want to make sure that it fits in with the neighborhood. So those are the things that we would look at. All those conditions under our conditional use requirements.
Okay. Will this be classified as a group home or a rooming house? I mean,
For zoning purposes, it's a group home. Health Housing calls it a rooming house. That's a little different of a classification, but it falls under the same. For the housing, health, it would be considered a room.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering. We've had time on a particular request on a rooming house since, is it 2012? That's on
I
there.
understand that one is in court, I believe.
Oh, okay.
That's why we've had
So,
that,
so
yeah,
that's why that one's on there for that time. Okay, all right. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, if we're opening this up, that, because I know that there's a number of group homes in the ward I represent, and I don't know that the neighbors, would want to, that would want to double in the amount of people that are in the house and have that come into single-family residential areas. So that was my concern about that.
So again, any more than 5 will come before City Council.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hoke. Any further questions or comments? Okay, very good. Hearing none, we'll now move on to the balance of the agenda and invite, if there's any individuals here that would like to attend this evening's meeting, they're welcome to stop back. And at 7 o'clock this evening, we'll have our public hearings and make recommendations after that. Thank you. At this point, I'm going to recommend time on the balance of the agenda. And we will now move on to the new list. One A we've taken care of. 2 we've taken care of. 3, those first 3 items are on our agenda. Those are public hearings. Item number 4, though, is adopting the 2019 Capital Investment and Community Development Program, legally referred to as the Capital Investment Budget.
So recommend to refer and advertise that for public hearing next week.
Yes, thank you. Well, just for the committee members and all council members, we will have a public hearing on the capital budget as proposed next week, on the 17th. I believe that's 17th, and then 28th, 17th and 28th.
14. Yeah.
14th, excuse me, 14th and 28th, 2 dates. The 14th we'll have a public hearing. After the public hearing, in between two public hearings. At 4:30, we'll have a budget review, correct? Okay, and then I believe the next would be the 28th. We would have an additional budget review of the capital budget at 4:30 on that date, on the 28th. So just to let everyone know so they can fill in their calendars. And I believe that they have, it's at 4 o'clock, both of those public hearings. Anything else? Okay, thank you. Can you please send out an email to everyone to make sure they're, okay, very good. Make sure everyone has the exact times. Other than that, we'll refer this item, obviously. Yeah, Mr. Neal?
For this budget process, can we see if we, of course, we've had much discussion about using a tool or resource to be able to look at the budget, and I know there were some who said that we can use the tool that we have as far as the Ohio Checkbook Review. Can we have that tool set up so that we can use that to look at this budget at that time, please?
I understand what you're saying.
When we were talking about putting our city's budget online so that council could have a better understanding of the budget as well as our,
Capital budget is online, correct?
no, excuse me, so that we could see our budget online as well as our constituents. And say if we said we wanted to take some money out of Park and Rec and put it in one area or vice versa, it was stated by yourself and others that the tools are already there for us to do that. I'm asking if we can have those tools in place so that when we go through this budget, we can, if we have questions, we can visually see our changes online, please.
Well, this is okay, if I could, this is a capital budget review. So in essence, what's going to happen is the administration will come in and go over the budget in detail for us. After we're done with that, we will then develop an ordinance that may or may not change that proposed capital budget. And what I'm not sure what you're talking about. I know, you've talked in considerable detail about this, the app where you can take 5% and move it over here and see what it looks like over there, but is that what you're talking about doing?
That's exactly what I'm talking about doing, because during the process, it was stated that the budget was online in such a way that we can do that. So I'd like for us to be able to look at that tool. I mean, we've got some things, a lot of exciting things that are happening within the city, and we have to be able to follow them throughout the budget. And if that tool exists, I'd like for us to be able to use it.
I'm not sure what you're referring
During our
to.
discussion, as you stated.
I'm not sure what you're talking, what specific.
Clarify, if I may clarify it for you, please, sir.
And please don't try to put words in my mouth.
No, I'm not putting words in your mouth. It was stated that the budget was online and that we had the tools to do what we were asking to do. So I'm asking that, and one of the tools that was mentioned was the Ohio Checkbook Review. So I'm asking if we can have that tool set up so that when we ask these questions about potentially moving money from one place to another, we can have it documented so we can see it. That's what that tool that we were talking about would allow us to do.
I have no idea, excuse me, what you're talking about, how, and who said that, it was said that we have that ability to move this and look at it after you move that, that we have that capability. What we have within our capital budget, which is online, our capital budget is online for the community to look at. And again, what we will do is we will review as proposed, and then after the presentation from the administration, we will then discuss changes that we wish to make. Now, I'm not aware that there's anything within the city that, other than working with the administration to amend the budget and to consider changes, there's not, I mean, the capital budget is online, but what you're proposing, I don't think is. And I don't think that was said by anyone
Okay,
that it is.
we could pull the minutes. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to make sure that we can do our job. It was mentioned that we have the tools already, that the budget was online, as you stated, and that we have the tool through the Ohio Checkbook Review for us to be able to look at and do projections and forecasting and see how it would impact the budget if we move money from one place to the other. So all I'm asking is that when we go through the budget process, that tool that was stated by
By who?
yourself.
Okay, I'd like to see that.
And, well, we can look it up in the minutes, that tool be there so that we can have a good idea to see as we set a goal and projection for the budget, that we have that tool to utilize. That's all I'm asking, sir.
Well, I believe that, again, we've been doing this for years, and we get the presentation from the administration. We work with the administration. If there's a desire from a council member to make an adjustment, we will then work with Mr. Segedy and the administration to evaluate that adjustment. We have been doing it this way for years because it does and will have an impact on wherever money is going to be taken away. So we can talk about this later. I don't want to take any more of the committee's time on this.
Okay, sir, not to take time from the
No,
committee, but for clarification, for accurate record's sake, the whole reason why we spent over 2 months trying to get the city's budget online with that
It is
software,
online.
and it is exactly...
It is online.
Exactly for that argument.
Okay.
Members such as yourself
Well,
stated
okay.
that we already have the tools to do what the software we were proposing would
Okay,
do. So what
very
I'm
good.
asking
Thank
is
you for that. We're going to move on at this
Excuse me,
point.
Mr. Chairman.
We have been, well, you're in the right. We've talked about this for 2.5 months.
Yes, sir. So I'm asking for clarification, as we're going into the budget process, that the tools that you and others stated that we already have to review the budget be there for us to use. I understand the process. I understand it very well. I'm just asking that we have the tools so that we can do better by ourselves and by our constituents in reviewing the budget. That's all I'm asking, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We will now move on to item number 5, which is authorizing conditional use to establish a medical marijuana processing facility at 844 East Talmadge Avenue.
Would refer and advertise for public hearing.
Thank you. Item number 6, authorizing a conditional use to establish a child day care business center at 1536 Briding.
Refer and advertise for public hearing.
Very good. Item number 7, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a lease agreement with the Genesis Outdoor Advertising to lease city-owned land at 530 Nome Avenue.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, council approved the conditional use for this billboard at Good Park Golf Course on October 15th, 2018. Now, this is the lease agreement for that billboard. The lease agreement would include a monthly payment of $3,500, an advance payment of $200,000, and an 8-second advertising spot for the city of Akron to use. And both Planning Commission and planning staff recommend approval.
Thank you. Is there questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Okay, we had, excuse me, oh, Ms. Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What portion of the lease amount is going back to the subsidy? They'll cover the subsidy. Now, is that 100%?
Yeah, this is not going to cover the complete subsidy of Good Park, but it will go to reduce that subsidy, both with the initial one-time payment and then the ongoing lease payments will go to support Good Park through the reduction of subsidy that we pay.
So the initial $200,000, will that go towards the subsidy?
It'll go towards 2019 subsidy, yes.
2019, 13, percentage of the $3,500 a month?
All of it.
All of it? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? We have discussed this, as we mentioned before in the past, in reference to the conditional use requests that have come in. I'd like to entertain a motion that we, for suspension of the rules. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. The ayes have it. Item number 8, authorizing the mayor to execute an option agreement and related agreements with Shin Etsu Silicones of America Incorporated for the sale of 41.85 acres of city-owned land, determining that property is not needed for the public use. Mr. DeShazer?
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we're asking in this ordinance to approve the option to sell land to Shinetsu Silicones of America. They've gone through a growth series that has included 4 new buildings in the Akron area, and with the completion of the next building, it would spur some interest in them creating a consolidation of the next step in the manufacturing process of silicones. Right at the moment, they process silicones from everything for the automotive industry to healthcare. So this gives us, not a deal, but an option to go forward for the possibility of their expansion. At present, there are 141 jobs in Akron. When they complete the project that's going on now, there will be another 32. And at the end of that, this will give opportunity for new investment and new job growth in Akron.
Thank you, sir. So in essence, though, with this particular agreement here, if something can be worked out, we would see more legislation in terms of the actual agreement itself, the actual sale itself.
Right, and this is not a sales agreement, this is an option, and this gives us the opportunity to go forward, to continue to negotiate. And, you know, our prayer is that at the end of the day, we'll be the choice for the new expansions in the future.
Absolutely, very good. Thank you, Mr. DeSazer. Questions or comments? Mr. Kilby.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Almost 42 acres, that's quite a big parcel of land. Do we have an appraisal on what it is probably worth?
We did this more than 2 years ago when we looked at the property. And as you know, when it came to the Planning Commission back in October, I think it passed Planning Commission on October the 16th, we looked at all of the infrastructure costs. We looked at the building of bridges, things that would accommodate you know, heavy equipment going back and forth. And so the option cost at the moment was about $600,000 for the parcel. So that's the total amount.
You said that's $600,000 to do all this infrastructure, or is that's what it's for?
That's the purchase option.
Okay. All right.
So what it would amount to is that it'd be a very expensive project for us, but the project itself, the company would invest those dollars to make sure it's a serviceable parcel that could complete.
Yeah.
So the cost of all of that infrastructure development goes in with the development.
Yeah. Is this pretty much dry land, or is this wetland?
You got a combination thereof of some Wadsworth silty loam soils, you have some hydrant soils in there, and you have a big creek bed that's running right through the middle of it.
Right.
So that's the reason why there's some consternation about us being responsible.
Yeah, it's like north, it'd be south of Evans, right? And the map doesn't lay out the streets, or I think this, but yeah, it sounds like a good idea. I just wonder, why do they need 42 acres? I mean, are they going to build like something like an auto plant there or something? Because that would be like what Twinsburg stamping plant had.
Well, at the point, I think that you'd find that some of that's not going to be usable property. Some of it's in low-lying ground near where the creek is.
Yeah.
And what you'll find is, if we sell 42, I can't tell you because I'm not the person, but the serviceable land is going to accommodate whatever the expansion would possibly be that could double the size of their operation.
So how long have we owned this, do you know?
Before my time.
Yeah, okay.
For some time.
All right, well, sounds like a good deal. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Kilby. Very good. I would highly recommend that we move quickly on this. This is positioning the city of Akron and Mr. DeShazer, Mayor Horrigan, to negotiate, from what I understand, with this corporation for a possible potential expansion. And I don't think we should wait. I think we should move and allow this to, excuse me, pass this one piece to allow that negotiation to take place, to position Akron to be in line with whomever else that they or may not be speaking to, but I think timing is of the essence on this particular piece. Ms. Sims has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too thought like 42 acres of land was a lot of land. And so there's a provision in the body of the legislation today, and I just wanted to note clarification on it. And it says, the mayor is further authorized to execute and deliver from time to time such amendments and supplements to the agreement and instructions as approved by the Director of Law. So does that mean once that we approve this today, that this doesn't come back before us? That there's some negotiations that are not really, we have clarity on purpose?
What you're asking, I think, is will you see it again? Will you be a part of it? And the answer is yes. But this gives us the ability to say with this option, we're going to continue to work with them to make sure that we're the choice for their future expansions. And right now, you know, there's no necessary an option to say that this would be the choice for their future expansion. We want to assure the company that we're going to be a partner in their development, and we want them to assure us that we're going to be the choice for their growth in the future.
I think I get that part. I know, but we don't grow land, so that's always a big issue. And so so could you, just for clarification, give me an example in which this wouldn't require to come before us for this provision of the contract? What wouldn't come before us? Like what amendment or supplement would happen that would not come back before us? That's what it says that this gives the authority to do. So what would be an example of that?
I'm not sure that there's anything that wouldn't come before you before an executed deal. That's the reason why I went to the Planning Commission first. And so we laid out some of the tenets of the potential option agreement. And you must also consider that this has been a landlocked parcel ever since the start of Akron. So, and I think that's probably some of the confusing part of it. And Mr. Kilby alluded to it. It was difficult for him to know even where it was. But if you look at the parcel map, I'm not sure if Mr. Antonucci has one that you could see, but it's on the south side, as you say.
So let me ask you this. Let me just make it really, really clear, because I can look at the map, but I'm just asking about that clause in the contract. Are we saying, say for example, we change our mind, we're going to cut the deal, we're going to sell you half of that. We're going to sell you 21 acres. That doesn't come back before us. That's just I'm asking.
Maybe I can answer this. Maybe in the law department is here, but from what I understand, the city charter mandates that any sale of or lease of any land whatsoever in the city of Akron has to come before council for approval, correct?
Yes.
So I'm not sure if that usurps that authority, Mr. Chairman. That's why I'm asking for clarification, because this is what the provision of the contract says. If you're telling me that that doesn't usurp that authority, I'll accept that. Then I would ask you the question, well, why would it be in there? Why is it in the why is this language in the contract?
Well, I'll tell you what we're trying to do, and this is what we were trying to achieve. If we get every potential growth opportunity that would come to North America, and we could accommodate it on the 41 acres, great. If we got half of that, we could augment an option to be able to accommodate first growth and then reserve some for other industries as well. But in this particular case, as is today, if we were to say that we were going to get all of the growth that was a potential, which it is a potential, and they have facilities in other states, Texas, California, and New Jersey, and we're in the middle of that service territory, we want them to say, if we come to Akron, we can do everything we wanted to do on that lot. And so we are making that as an option. But if they choose to only put half of it here, or they could choose to put none of it here. But we're trying to give them good faith effort that if you come here, we're going to accommodate you for this growth. And those jobs will be coming that will be full-time, living wage jobs for Akronites.
Okay.
It's not okay, but if...
Further? No, I'm sorry. I was asking if you had any further questions.
So I don't think I mean, I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I'm just wondering, if I'm going to approve it, I just want to really understand. So the freedom that this provides to the mayor, his designee, so we're saying, the potential is we're selling the land for $600,000. Is that, or are we just saying that's what?
That is what
it is
right now. And this is an option for us to continue to work with them so that they know that we're going to continue to work with them to be able to accommodate this for the future.
So if we decide that we're going to sell the land for $350,000, that doesn't come back to us?
Right.
Oh, for
Mr.
approval.
Neal?
Just to make, I think I understand what my colleague is stating, but I want to get the understanding on the right. When you said right, meaning right, it doesn't come back before us, or right, it does come back before us?
It will come back.
Sales of land will come back here.
Okay.
And
now-
you will approve it, and then before anything is approved, this body will vote on it before we go forward.
And this is why I think there may be, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was much discussion about the steam plant. This was before the present administration, much discussion. The steam plant, we even had to vote on it. The steam plant was given to Children's Hospital. It came back to the city, and we didn't know about it. Now, it worked out to our advantage because now the steam plant is profitable. But the conversation that started with the steam plant was because the city was losing money, somewhere in the neighborhood of $12 million, or I don't know how much money we were losing. The steam plant came back to the city. Council knew nothing about it. We found out about it kind of willy-nilly. And this is after the citizens voted on sending the steam plant to Children's Hospital. So I think that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Sims, that type of scenario is what we're trying to protect ourselves from. Here, this actually went to a vote before the citizens to give the steam plant to Children's Hospital. It comes back to us, and council finds out about it.
Okay.
Pardon?
Let's,
Well, excuse me, they may have refused it. Okay, but we voted to give it to them. When they refused it, city council knew nothing about it. It didn't. Yes, ma'am, I understand that. But to your point, it went to a vote to the citizens to give it to them. Council was never informed that the transfer never took place. So,
In this case,
okay, well, I want to...
in this case, if there's a sale, it'll come back here first.
Get back, I want to get back to, I tell you what, there's, with respect, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Neal, I'm the chairman, with respect to your concerns and questions, and Ms. Sims, everyone, I'll ask for time so we can take a week and we can get some answers, so on and so forth, and we'll just move on, just in the interest of time. Mr. Kilby, I'd like to really take time. Let's
Mr.
move
Chairman,
on.
can I-
No, sir, you cannot. Thank you, you cannot. Okay, very good. I'm going to request time. Is there a motion for time? Is there a second? All those in favor of time signify by saying aye. Ayes have it. Okay. Item number 9, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a lease agreement with Akron Zoological Park to lease city-owned land at 500 Edgewood. Anyone here on this item? Anyone? Okay, very good. Well, I'd like to, Mr. Moore?
Mr. Chairman, this is an extension of the existing lease of the zoo. They had it 9 years. This would extend it for another 40 years at its current term, which is $1 a year.
$1 a year. Okay, for how long, sir?
This will extend it for 40 years.
40 years. Very good. Questions or comments, committee members first? Mr. Neal.
just a question, Mr. Moore.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure how large the parcel, well, I guess all of it is what we leased. Do we, I don't know if there's still any oil reserves or anything being drilled there. Do we as the city get full benefit of that, or does the county and?
Yeah, I believe there are 2 wells on the property. We haven't drilled any in the last 20 years, I don't think. The royalties from those wells go with the property, which the zoo leases from us. They have like 53 acres of our property, and I think they have like 30 or so acres of property that they've acquired over the years. So all those together are what makes up the zoo property.
So we don't share in any of that at all?
No, they get the royalties from those wells.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other committee members? Mr. Kilby?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I know this whole area was part of Perkins Park at one time. So it's 53 acres, and it doesn't mention how much they're paying for a lease. Is it, do you know how much?
It's $1 a year.
How much?
$1 a year.
Okay. You know what, I know we're not in the business to make money off the zoo, but, you know, they have a couple mills or whatever, so it just seems like they may be able to pay a little more than $1 an acre. I mean, it's like, because they seem like they may be more well-funded than the city now. So has there any consideration been given to raising this to something a little more than just a nominal amount of money?
No, we did not consider that. I'm not saying that we couldn't.
Yeah, because they seem to be pretty well funded from what I can tell, since they have the tax coming in, but just an idea.
Okay. Ms. Sims?
Mr. Chairman, there is no supporting document. Could we actually have the agreement attached so that we could take a look at it?
Yes.
Sure, we can supply that.
So, Mr. Moore, in the agreement, what Councilman Neal raised relative to the wells, is that in there too?
I don't believe that is in there, no.
So is there any reason why it wouldn't be in there?
We could add that to the lease,
Thank you,
that
sir.
information.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Neal?
I just want to mention this because we're on this subject. Whenever we lease land, do we control, or is it a part of our lease where we control all mineral rights and now air rights? I would,
I mean, I can answer that all leases are different. If that's something that you feel needs to be included, I mean, council has the...
I think just going forward, it would be good for us to know. I'd like to know how much they've made off of the wells over that year, over that period of time, to see what we've missed out on. I mean, I think we all know the benefit of the zoo, but going into the future, we know air rights are something that now people are making money off of, and mineral rights. I think our leases we should, especially if we're giving the land out for $1, we should keep control over all mineral rights and air rights.
Mr. Kilby?
You know, I support the zoo. You know, I always vote for their levies. But, you know, they're not cheap for our people to go to. I know they have their days where it's free and everything, but do they give any kind of a discount to the city citizens of Akron to go there, as opposed to people coming from anywhere else in the county or anywhere else in the world?
I can't answer that question. I could go to their website and look.
Can we get that information? Because I mean, I think maybe we have an opportunity here to use a little leverage before we pass this and maybe negotiate something that would be good for our citizens, which is a discount. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Cleveland Zoo, if you're in Cuyahoga County, which is, their zoo is supported by the Metro Parks up there, they give a discount if you're citizens of Cuyahoga County. I'm thinking maybe we could do something to help some of the poor people in the city go to the zoo.
Yeah, that's a good question, and Mr. Moore can come back and report back on the questions that have been asked, but I believe that they do work quite a bit with the community in terms of trying to provide, you know, less expense for the community. Also, that just so that we all realize and we're all on the same page in terms of the zoo, just a great asset that the city has been supporting for years and years is that, you know, in fact, that, you know, if we would, you know, pass on and try to collect from them, that obviously would be, have to be addressed somewhere within their budget. So, like I said, they have done an amazing job over there the last 20 years, and it's been a great asset here for Akron and Summit County that supports it. So with that, Mr. Moore, I think you have some
I was just going to say,
back to the
week's
committee
time is
next
good,
week.
and Mr. Pykosh would be happy to answer any of these and all these questions if you would like him to be present next week.
That's fair. Yeah. Very good. Is there a motion to refer this item?
Motion to refer.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. 9A, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a lease agreement with Congresswoman Marcia L. Fudge, United States House of Representatives, 11th District of Ohio, for offices at the Lawton Community Center for the City of Akron.
Good afternoon. This is just to enter into a simple lease agreement with Congresswoman Fudge so that she can be accessible to Akronites here, to have a local office here at Lawton Community Center, and this is just to enter into agreement with her office. And if there's no objections, they would like to do this as soon as possible, so suspension of the rules is requested.
Okay. Questions or comments? Well, we'll go to committee first. Mr. Kamer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is just, are we charging the Congresswoman?
Yes, it will be $350 per month, and we discussed that with them. We had various conversations with Dr. Joan Williams, and those are the agreed upon. That's the agreed upon price.
Okay. Questions from committee members? Short of that, Sims. Very good. Further questions or comments? Very good. Is there a recommendation for suspension of the rules?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Short of that, we've concluded, and that's it for the Planning Committee. First meeting of 2019.
Business Center of Reading Road.
Oh, that one about the daycare. Yeah. For some reason, they gave me 2 copies of 5. Me too.
Thanks. You too.
I would like to call the public service meeting to order. All members are present at this time. Happy New Year. This is 2019, and I need an approval for the minutes from our prior meeting in 2018.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the minutes pass. We have nothing on our old agenda. We just have what is coming before us today on our new agenda. Under Public Service, number 10, ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts with a parking management company for the management and operation of parking services for the City of Akron's parking deck, surface lots, and on-street parking meters, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Moore?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, ABM has been taking care of our parking lots and our parking decks for a number of years, I want to say over 5 years. We thought it was time that we should probably go out and seek bids on this project and make sure that we're still operating as efficiently as we can. And this would allow us to advertise for those bids.
Are there any questions from the committee? Hearing and seeing none, are there any questions from other members of council? Councilwoman Sims?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the piece where it says the maintenance part, are we still responsible for the like resurfacing of lots and those kind of things?
All of the major capital improvements are our responsibility.
So currently, on the folks who go around and kind of look at the meter and collect the money, are those our people or are those of
Those are ABM.
So we're not looking at any kind of loss of jobs and services or?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, what is the pleasure?
Consent's fine.
Consent? Do I have a motion for consent?
Motion for consent.
I have a motion. Is there a second? There's been a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any disapproval? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the consent agenda. Number 11, ordinance ratifying the actions of the Director of Public Service in contracting with Puram Electric for the emergency repair and replacement of the home run wiring for the runway lights of runway 7-25 at the Akron Fulton Airport, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency. Mr. Moore.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we've been having issues with the lighting on the runway at the municipal airport. This would allow us to use the company that's been doing the repair work out there over the years to fix that home run, they call it. It's a major line that runs down the runway, allow it to be repaired so we could continue to have night flight.
That makes a lot of sense, okay?
It does
and
make a lot of
it
sense.
looks to me as if we have not had an issue with these lighting in the past as I looked at the legislation. So it was never put in the budget because we have never, in the past, we have just done regular maintenance and gotten by that, but now we have to do it a step further. Okay. All righty, are there any questions from the committee? Any questions from other members of council? Seeing and hearing none, what is the
Consent would
pleasure?
be- consent would be
Consent? Do I hear a motion for consent?
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, this will be placed on the consent agenda. Number 12, ordinance authorizing the mayor, the director of public service, the director of finance, and the director of neighborhood assistance to enter into contracts after publicly advertising for bids through the office of the purchasing agent for the purchase of materials and services needed by the various divisions and departments of the city for a period of time not to exceed 3 years, approving the specifications therefore and declaring an emergency. Mr. Moore.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this is the ordinance that allows us to purchase things that we need over the year. Well, actually, this is for 3 years. Advertise bids to get prices on those materials that we need, you know, patching materials or whatever else the city needs in terms of its operations.
Mr. Moore, would you be able, I apologize I didn't ask you sooner, but why do we do this for 3, what is the reasoning behind, I think I understand, but for a 3-year agreement?
It allows us to get better prices, but I believe Kim Herron's here from the purchasing department if there's specific questions about it.
Ms. Herron?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 3-year contracts is for like HVAC and custodial. It's cheaper to take it for 3 years because they have contracts that are included. And with the insurance and the performance bonds that we require, it's just cheaper and easier just to do it for 3 years. Supplies like asphalt is usually just 1 year.
When we do it the 3-year contract, this gives us an advantage then of getting a better price because we say that we will be with them for 3 years. However, we also have the option, if not, if we don't find it accessible, that we can also withdraw from the agreement?
That is correct.
Thank you. Is there any other questions for committee members? Any other questions from members of the council chambers? Hearing and seeing none, what is your pleasure, Mr. Moore?
Consent would be fine.
Consent, is there a motion for consent? I have a motion for consent and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, that will be placed on the consent agenda. Number 13 is an ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into an agreement or agreements without the formality of advertising for bids for the purchase of miscellaneous supplies, services, repair parts, and labor for machinery and equipment used by various divisions and departments of the city for a period of 1 year, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this will allow us to purchase things we need on an emergency basis. So if something goes wrong and we need a part for, we can go out and buy that part. We put together a list of acceptable bidders, or not bidders, but we get quotes from 2 to 3 companies before we make the purchase. But this allows us to do that.
And would the operative word be here, emergency purchases?
I think that's the operative word.
Alrighty. Are there any questions from the committee members? Any questions from members of council? Councilwoman Sims.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, just in light of the Elevate Akron report, on a almost a $12.5 million no bid contracts, of the folks listed, do you know what percentage of those folks listed are black-owned businesses or service providers and or women?
I'll let Ms. Herron address that.
No, I didn't look into that, but I can find out for you.
So I'm only going to say because I've asked this question before, and I've asked it because I thought I think it is important. And
okay.
I hope that we have
All
that
right.
by now.
Yeah, I'll check in on that.
So, I don't know, I don't know if you're asking for immediate passage, but hopefully we'll have that before we make a vote on this particular piece of legislation. And thank you.
Ms. Herron, if you get that information, if you would be so kind as to share it with the committee, that would be very much appreciated. That's Mr. Moore, are there any other questions? Councilman Hope.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. On all the people that are listed, or the companies that are listed on this, these are people that are companies that qualify and are able to do business with the city because of what our requirements are and what qualifications they have in that, and that they have bid on other things with the city so that we know what their background is and what we can do with them in an emergency basis.
These are firms we've used in the past. I want to say that list, anybody can get on the list and provide a quote to us if we're looking for a certain item. Mm-hmm. And I know that, well, absolutely, it's a priority with this administration that we do this. I believe Ms. Herron's attended several events related to your question over the last year. And I believe she's added at least three companies to the list that are minority-owned companies. So anybody can get on this list. It's not an exclusive list. You just need to provide us with a quote.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
May I piggyback off of Councilman Hoke's question? If there are certain requirements that allow you to be on this list, could we see those requirements so that we have an idea of what, it has nothing to do with anything except that they have to meet the requirements?
Yes.
Okay, that would be helpful also to all of council, please. Thank you so much. And what is the pleasure?
Consent would be fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilwoman Sims.
I would venture to say, thank you, Madam Chair, I would venture to say, as we look at our whole entire operations, where we're looking at law enforcement and representation, when we find that there are major deficiency, so we make adjustments. So it's important, I think, that we know when this is not, when we're not meeting a requirement, or if we even have one that we know that we're trying to meet. And so to just say plainly that if they're not meeting requirements, that's just not enough. If they're not meeting requirements, as a city and as administration, maybe we should be looking at ways to go about more innovative ways to recruit folks to make sure we have those representations. So it's not enough to say they're not on the list because they don't meet these requirements. I think that we have to do more.
We'll get you the requirements.
Thank you so much. What is the pleasure?
Consent would be fine.
I have a motion and second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, is there anything else to come before this committee? Okay. We are adjourned.
All right, boss.
Public utilities at 2:30. That should be coming. I keep looking up there at that clock. Safety. Oh, yeah, safety is next. But I keep looking up at that clock, even though it is no longer there and the little clock is there. So we have some time.
Our next committee is Public Safety. I know, he'll be here in a minute. Yes, I did.
Well, thank you so much. Did you put in everybody's notes? Yes.
They said that's the good one. That's what Mayor Pasquale used to say. That's the good version.
Thank you. All right. We're going to go ahead and move forward. I know we're running behind with a public safety meeting. Last time we met was obviously in 2018, and we do have minutes. Can we get approval of those minutes, please? All in favor of those? Anybody opposed? All right, so we have two new pieces in front of us. Our first piece, authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Phoenix Safety Outfitters for the purchase of ladder escape belts for the use of by the Akron Fire Division and declare an emergency. Deputy Mayor of Public Safety, Charlie Brown.
Good afternoon, happy New Year. This request for sole source is the request is because the fire gear, the new fire gear we have has been FPA tested with this specific belt. So it just so happens that Chief Cow actually brought the belt, and he's also here to answer any other questions that you may have regarding the details.
Good, thanks. Chief?
Thank you. Yeah, just to add to that, the original legislation was to advertise for bids for the ladder belts. And once we awarded the fire gear to Phoenix Safety Outfitters, upon many meetings with them, we discovered that there was a better belt out there that would work out better with the gear and for our fire department. So that is why we're coming back to ask for sole source to purchase these items through Phoenix Safety Outfitters.
Okay, sounds good. He said you do have the belts? Where? I can't
Yes,
see
I
them.
have the
Chair. Oh, okay. All right. Any questions, committee members? Anyone? No?
So what you're saying is,
Go ahead.
no one else provides the same quality service, no other belt manufacturer?
There are other belts out there, and we
Okay.
have looked at other belts, and we've determined that this is the best belt, quality and safety, and it's what we want for our firefighters. The other nice piece of this is because it can be provided by the company that we awarded the fire gear bid, we're able to receive a considerable discount with this large purchase. We purchased 277 sets of fire gear from this company, and due to that, we're able to achieve a savings. Typically, these belts retail for anywhere between $160 to $175, and we're able to purchase each one for $100.
Good.
Very good.
Thanks. Good question. Councilwoman?
Number one, I'm glad the quality matches what you're looking for. That's the most important thing, and having a savings with it is terrific. What are the belts used for exactly?
Well, I'll show you.
I would love that.
Yes.
So
Don't put it on me, but I'd love
this is the belt, and of course, incorporated into the pants are loops. Now, one of the nice things with this belt is with going with this belt, the fire gear company, they use their own specifications for the loops. Now, the loops might be say the weakest link in the chain, if you will, to put a lot of pressure on this. So having very good quality craftsmanship in the loops is very important along with the belt. So, as Deputy Mayor Brown said earlier, that this belt with the pants was tested as one unit by the National Fire Protection Association. So we have that guarantee that this belt does work with the pants, as opposed to getting a different belt and then using it with the pants. They haven't been tested together. So the belt works as so. As the firefighter put their pants on, it also acts as a belt to secure and to keep the waist up along with the suspenders. But then also, this is the main part why we're going with it. We have this D-ring here that this provides an attachment point for a carabiner, a friction device. We currently carry a bag of rope on our SCBA that if we have to jump out of a window, bail out of a window, in a really dangerous situation, we at least have some type of a means to attach to something. And then right now, without this, we don't have an attachment point on our gear. So this provides us, we're able to hook in and roll out the window. So that's basically it. And along with that, it also provides some versatility to attach other things to, put other caregivers, attach tools to. So it's a very versatile piece of equipment, and it's something we haven't had on the fire department up to this point. The industry is moving in that direction, and we wanted to, with this large fire gear purchase, bring that into the fire department.
What is the shelf life of a belt?
It's 10 years. Pretty much every piece of safety equipment that we wear, NFPA recommends 10 years. And it's whether it's been used or not used, we have to remove it from service. It's the same with the fire, identical with the fire gear. So as we purchase these with the fire gear, it'll all have a 10-year shelf life, and they'll all have to be removed from service every 10 years.
So each one is $10 a year to keep it
That's
for 10
a
years.
good way to look at it,
because
yes,
of
absolutely.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions or comments? Councilman Kilby.
So how much do these belts cost individually? Okay, so we're going to get one for each firefighter, correct? Or
Yes, sir.
do they, like, they don't share them, they have their own belt, right? So they don't, like, say, well, when I'm off duty, this guy can wear it, or?
Absolutely not. Everybody's protective fire equipment is their own.
Okay.
And this will be issued to each and every person on the department.
That's
It'll be
good.
theirs, it'll be marked theirs. We'll be marking the serial numbers. We mark these with their name on it, and they're individual to each person to also wash and care for them.
So we do have belts now that aren't as good as these, or we don't have belts?
We do not have belts.
All right, thank you.
Belts. Thank you, Kilby. Any other questions or comments? Council members? All right, with that, hey, you know what? I'll be honest with you, Charlie Brown. I'm liking how this committee is moving forward with some more hands-on experience. You know, last year we had their radar units, and so keep that coming along. What's your pleasure?
Suspension of the rules is,
All
we're
right,
issuing
sure.
the fire gear, and we'd like to get this out with it.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, thank you, Chief, for coming down. I appreciate that. All right, our next piece, authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids for the purchase of miscellaneous materials and services needed by the Department of Public Safety and for a period of time not to exceed 3 years, approving the specifications therefore, and declaring an emergency. Sorry, I apologize. Charlie Brown?
Kim Herron's going to speak to it. We'll be here to answer any questions.
This is for all the safety materials that we need for up to a 3-year contract. So does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for committee members? Councilwoman Sims, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just looking at the list of items for protective clothing, there was a significant reduction in this year's allocation. Is that because we've already purchased all of the 2 pairs of equipment for 2 pairs of wear for all of the firefighters, or is that part of this? So it went from 435,000 to 129,000. Is that because we are?
Yes. Last year was the large purchase, was the initial push to get the second set of gear, so we had to outfit about 275 firefighters with a second set. From this point forward, we'll need to maintain that. Like we talked about, gear has a 10-year shelf life. We have gear existing now that's nearing 10 years. So every year we'll be looking at the fire gear, whether it needs condemned due to age or damage, and then we'll need to purchase gear. So that 120 represents an estimate of gear that may need to be replaced for whatever reason, and also potentially purchasing gear for new hires. So that's why we won't need to purchase, hopefully we'll never have to purchase as many as we did in 2018, the 275. It's basically maintaining our 2 sets and then providing sets for new rookies. So that's why that number is reduced.
So to say that I'm ecstatic that each one of our firefighters have 2 pairs, they're outfitted with 2 pairs of firefighting equipment. It's just excellent. What I didn't see was, included in that cost, are the extractor machines in there as well?
No, the extractor machine cost is not. We currently have extractors in all stations.
They're all, we've already,
Every station has an extractor.
Excellent.
That's why the timing of this was pretty good, and now that we have a second set, we're mandating that all firefighters after a fire, they have to wash their gear. And we can say that now because every station has an extractor, so there's no reason why they cannot wash their gear.
Excellent.
So we have purchased all the extractors, and that will, again, as we want to keep a functioning extractor at every station, as the years go on, we'll be looking at our extractors and their age and replacing as needed.
My final question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So on there's new purchases for the hoses. Are those just new ones for the new firehouses? So it looks like an additional item we didn't purchase last year. It's about $35,000. It says hose fire 1-inch. Are those just for the new?
That's basic equipment that we use on a fire ground. Potentially, those are on there because potentially we may have to spend over $15,000 throughout the year on hose. Adapters are the appliances that we use to spray water, whether they be
So we didn't buy any last year, I assume?
We, I can't speak
Yeah,
to
just
that
said,
for
I was
sure.
just wondering
We'd have
because
to
it was
look
a
back at the
zero
records.
allocation last year. I just thought maybe it was something new that we were buying for the new
I think
stations, but.
part of that is just playing on the safe side and making sure we have the legislation in place in case we do get damage to quite a bit of equipment. We'll be able to purchase more.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions or comments? Councilwoman Keith first.
Thank you. Is this issue 4 money that we are using for, maybe not for all of it, but for the majority of it? Would this be issue 4 more money?
What's listed on here, I believe that none of that is issue 4 funding.
Okay.
That's our regular income tax capital that we use for maintenance of firefighter gear from this point forward.
But if it weren't for the issue 4 money, having taken care of so much of it, we may not even be looking at this. Would that be a
Absolutely.
correct statement? Mr. Chair, may I go back to a
Yeah.
previous piece? Sure. So on the belts that we just okayed, is that issue 4 money? I just like to be able to go back and tell my constituents.
Yes, that is, like I said, earlier legislation this year when it was approved to purchase the fire gear, the belts were included in that, and the total price, including the belts, was included in that, and that was all issue 4 funding. So the belts are issue 4, and that's already been expensed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief. And moving forward, if you're able to, collaborate and maybe mention that in some of these pieces, or let the law department know, that'd be nice. So it kind of clears it up for us. So I appreciate that. No, that's good. I had Councilman Kilby next after Keith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the items on the list, under the traffic engineering stuff, looks like these are new items that we've never had before. There's, what is it? Hang on a second, lost my place.
Video detection camera.
Yeah, the traffic controllers and the traffic signal head assemblies, what are those and why do we need to have them if we never had them before?
I don't know if Chris or John can answer that question.
Yeah, you're going to need to repeat the question, Mr. Kilby. He didn't hear it, or Mr. Lover didn't hear it either.
The 2 items under traffic engineering, that it looks like we didn't buy them last year or have them. It's traffic controllers for $24,000, and then traffic signal head assemblies for $16,500. I mean, first off, what are these items, and why do we need them?
These are the lights that come on when we have a fire situation. So they're the warning lights for people that are...
Okay, so they're nothing to do with traffic signals then? Or
Yeah, it can turn all the lights red. So for instance, if an ambulance was coming through, they can turn the lights red.
But I thought we already did that in some places, don't we, or?
We do.
Yeah.
I can give you the locations.
So we didn't have to spend any money last year on that, that's all, right? We need some? Because it says in 2018 it was zero spent on those items.
I can get you details on these expenditures if you'd like.
Okay, I just wondered what they were. So the traffic controllers are things that can control the signals to make them, the traffic lights go red, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, is it something that's handheld that the fire department can have?
I'll let him.
If the traffic preemption signal, yeah, what it is it actually turns it green in the direction we're moving on
Okay.
some of the main roads, say for instance Arlington Road. As we're rolling down Arlington Road, there's what's called a yelp. There's a siren setting that puts out a really fast siren, and it activates the preemption device, and it turns it green in our direction and red in all the other directions.
So
So it keeps us moving.
automatically triggered, or does somebody in the fire truck have to push a button?
We just have to put it, as we're approaching, we have to put our siren on a certain setting.
Okay.
And then it activates it. It picks it up a good few hundred yards away.
Okay.
And by the time we're rolling up to it, it's already turned green.
Okay, so we want to add 2 more of these, is that what it is?
Yes.
And we already have, how many do we have out there now, do you know? I mean, just
I
give me a ballpark.
can't provide that information. I can get it for you.
What about the traffic signal head assemblies? What's that?
Trying to see where you're at.
It's the last page of the
202.
202.
Oh, those are the actual lights themselves?
It says traffic signal head assemblies.
Yeah, those are the actual lights themselves,
Those are
the
traffic lights?
boxes.
Okay. All right, can you get 20 more traffic lights? Okay, thanks.
That's it? All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments? I know Councilwoman Sims had her hand up again, too.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So are we getting new uniforms for the officers? Looks like that amount doubled too.
Are you talking police or
Police
fire?
officers.
We they expect a new class coming, so
So that's for the new class? Excellent. On the video detection cameras, what exactly are those? It's the last item.
I gave mine no more.
So we didn't purchase any last year. Okay, I just want to know what they were and where did they go?
Okay. I don't know. This is communications. I don't know. I'll find it out for you. So your question is, you want to know where they went?
No, I just wondered what they were and where did they go. We didn't have them before, so I just kind of wondered, just an explanation of what they were and where they went. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Just a suggestion, next time this piece comes in, maybe we can try to have someone from communications and traffic engineering. I mean, you two obviously are doing your part, so just my suggestion. I appreciate it. Any other questions or comments? What's the pleasure?
Is consent okay?
Consent, yeah.
Consent's okay.
Okay, I prefer consent. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, thank you, Chief, Deputy Mayor, Public Safety, Kim. I'll see you folks, and we're adjourned. Thanks.
Members of council, because of the time, we're going to cancel the Park and Rec meeting, but I'm going to ask that members do, please look at the attachment that was sent out, and there's another one that's going to come out regarding an equity tool that will address some of the concerns that were brought up during the service committee meeting that we're going to use as a complement to the participatory budget piece that also went out. So that email will be going out for you to have that tool so we can pick back up next week. Thank you.
That being said, we got public utilities.
Public utilities will start in 2 minutes. Thank you, sir. All members of the committee are present. If I could get approval of our previous meeting minutes from December 17th.
Motion for approval?
All in favor? Okay, our first piece, make sure I'm on the right page, is an ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts for the replacement of the water mains owned and operated by the City of Akron and Hudson on Regis Boulevard, St. Ives Boulevard, St. Ives Boulevard, Hudson Park Drive, and Hudson Aurora Road, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Little, Mr. Moore.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this would allow us to repair some water lines in Hudson that have been giving us, I won't say fits, but we've had a lot of problems with these lines in the past. This will allow us to replace them and eliminate that maintenance operation.
Okay.
This will allow us to bid.
All right. Any questions from committee members?
Yeah, I have one.
Mr. Kilby?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Moore, I'm familiar with Middleton Road up there. Are these streets St. Regis and St. Ives in that same vicinity? And is that
Yes.
Hudson? Okay. So how old are these existing water lines?
One's from 87 and 2 of them are from 76,
Okay.
but they were inherited from the county. We're not put into our standards. I think the soil conditions up there are suspect as well.
Okay. So they're really not that old in the scheme of things. So you said the county put them in back in them days, 87? Okay.
We inherited them from the county. I don't know who did their installations. The county, I don't believe, put them in themselves, but they would have been done under their inspection.
All right. That's, how many breaks has there been in the last year up there? I mean, just...
I have that information.
Has it been a lot, huh? Okay. So every time, who's in charge of
More
maintaining
than a
them? Us?
dozen, I mean,
Who has to maintain them, us or Hudson?
We
So
do.
we have to run all the way up there and do that,
We
right?
do.
Okay, or hire somebody to do it. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? What's your pleasure?
Consent would be fine.
Okay, can I get a motion for consent?
Motion for consent?
All in favor? Opposed? Okay, our next piece, ordinance authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of advertising for bids with Gray Matter Systems for the purchase of a GE iFix Global Care Complete Software Support Package for the Water Supply Bureau and declaring an emergency.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, this is the software. This is an annual contract that we use for sewer maintenance, our CSO monitoring, our AWR monitoring, our pump stations, our racks. Water distribution also uses it to gauge the levels of the tanks and the booster pumping equipment. This would allow us to continue with the current supplier for another year.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Any questions from council? No? Okay, can I get a motion for consent?
Second.
All in favor? Ayes have it. There's nothing else coming before us. Wait, Mr. Kilby?
I don't see Mr. Hardy here, but...
He's there.
Oh,
He's
Mr.
back there.
Hardy, next week, I would like you to be prepared to discuss the ordinance that I brought in concerning sewers, and I would appreciate that very much, so we can discuss it at the Public Utilities Committee. Is that all right?
Mr. Hardy. Mr. Hardy.
Mr. Hardy, I would just like you to be prepared next week to come in and give us some information about my ordinance that I brought in the last meeting about the public sewers, okay? Can you do that, sir?
So we have communicated with the chairwoman that we are still working to identify exactly what has been, or to give you the data as easily identifiable as possible so that you can read apples to apples based on what you asked. We will be prepared to discuss everything from the legality of the ordinance itself to the specificity of those single-family households that had any bills over 500, and we're trying to match them up with the policy itself.
Well, the intent of, my intent was to extend the same break to renters as it is given to homeowners now. Is that accurate? I think you said something like last year it was only $122,000 that we wrote off for homeowners. Does that sound?
No, that doesn't sound accurate.
What was it? How much was it?
So I don't have my list in front of me. We provided it to council before the break, but it was several $100,000. In fact, I think it was actually over 7 figures over the course of the last 2 years that we have been able to work through for property owners. So it's beyond,
So it's been over $1 million.
So we had,
I'm talking about last year.
yeah, so for 2018, all total, this actually doesn't include December, so these are going to be a little higher. For toilet leaks alone, we had $197,298.97 that was credited. For burst water pipes, we had $249,404.54 that was credited for burst water pipes. And for verified unknown underground leaks, we had $99,045.87 that was credited. Again, those numbers are probably going to be a little higher once December's come in, and that does not include 2017 numbers. So when you calculate all that, I would say very comfortably we're in the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we've credited through the policy so far. Again, for property owners, yes, that does primarily support and assist owner-occupied homes, but any property owner, based upon these 3 very verifiable and auditable occurrences, are eligible for relief under the current policy. So it's not just single family. If there's a property owner, someone who owns that property, they can also avail themselves of that. They just have to follow the same rules and regs as single family homeowners.
Okay, well, I thought our regs excluded rental property if the landlord's name was on the water bill. Is that correct?
That is not correct. It's a property owner.
Okay, well, I just wonder, like, I was thinking about this over the holidays, and so it was about $1 million, something like that, we spent for the homeowners. We wrote off, is that, how much was that total you rattled off here?
So I would say we are probably, just for 2018, we're going to be around, and I'm approximating around $500,000. When you include 2017 numbers, which I do not have in front of me, so I don't want to approximate, there would be an additional credit to that, again, based on verifiable toilet leaks, burst water pipes, and unknown underground leaks.
Okay, well, I have a question. Like, I've always heard the number kicked around of rental properties, homes are about half. Does that sound accurate to you?
Can you repeat that question? I apologize.
I've always heard the number of 50% or half the houses in Akron are rentals. Does that sound accurate to you?
No, I don't think that sounds accurate. I think what the stat you're probably referring to is that half of the people in Akron rent, which is also unverified, but even if we accepted that, it could be single-family dwellings. It's more likely multifamily dwellings where there's multiple people in a building.
Okay, is there any way of the administration or the water department determining how many of these renters that live in houses, can we get that information? How many are houses?
We are working through that now, but I'm not sure that we're going to be, we are looking at property ownership. So I'm not going to be able to determine, we're not going to be able to determine for this committee how many of those property owners for single-family dwellings are renting it out to someone else, unless they're on the rental registry. So we can, again, work to match that, but that's going to take time.
Okay, well, I think we need to come up with some numbers of how many houses we're talking about so we can talk about this issue in realistic terms. And one thing that kind of bothers me is, like 2 years ago when we visited this, and the Beacon Journal repeated this number. I think you said if we extended this to everybody, it'd be like, was it millions of dollars, like $6 million or something like that?
No, you're thinking about HEAP, extending HEAP eligibility to everyone in the city. Those are two separate issues.
Okay, well, if we could come up with some numbers, if you could, please, how many houses are rentals? And if we extended this to everybody, whether they're owners or renters, how much that would cost. We're trying to come up with some realistic numbers so we know what we're talking about, that's all.
Yeah, again, we are more than happy to work with the chairwoman to get the information that's been requested and have that discussion. Again, I think it's worth noting that this policy only becomes more successful if council members help us to promote it. So the more you tell your constituents, the more you allow us to come to ward meetings or be a part of your e-newsletters or however you communicate with your constituents to say, hey, if you get a high bill, give this number a call because you may have a leaky toilet, a burst water pipe, although people usually know those are there, or an underground unknown leak. That would be incredibly helpful to get that kind of support, and it will only increase the likelihood that people utilize this existing policy successfully.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. And again, they're compiling a list of our requests from December 17th, so it may take longer than a week. If so, could you guys just shoot me an email? Thanks. And there's nothing else coming before us, so we are adjourned.
Thank you.
This time I'd like to call to order the Budget and Finance Committee meeting. Happy New Year, Bruce. All right, I have minutes from the last meeting. Looking for a motion to approve those. Motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. For the record, all members are present with the exception of Ms. Amobian. We have one item before us, and this is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to pay costs associated with the city's participation in miscellaneous organizations, associations, and agencies, and declaring an emergency. Ms. Miller-Dawson.
Hi, there is a list attached of all membership fees that are over $15,000. Again, this is the same list that I think we've had the last few years. No real changes here.
Okay. Very good. Any questions or comments? Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I looked at it real quick. Is the city a member of the Ohio Municipal League? Because I didn't see it.
The city is currently a member.
So we're not continuing that?
We are probably not continuing.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how much it costs, but I just know with all that's going on in the state, it helps when we, work together with our local colleagues.
I mean, we are still able to do that without being a member. I mean, we have relationships with other communities.
Okay. I know they've helped me when I've called them, and I know you get better assistance when you're a member than when you're not, so.
But again, the value that we were paying for that, we did not see a lot of value in what we were getting.
Okay, thank you. Do you remember how much that cost was?
It was over $15,000.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? Consent agenda be okay?
Yes, thank you.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? All right, we'll see this is placed on the consent agenda. We have nothing else to come before us. Thank you.